Council, I declare a ordinary council meeting open. I'd firstly like to. The camera hasn't spun around. We're just waiting a second while we just check the camera. Councillors, as I said, I declare the ordinary meeting of council for May open. I'd just like to speak to the knowledge of the country, and that is that Warren Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land in Warren Shire and acknowledges the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who reside within the Shire. Councillors, it's with great sadness that I convey to you the passing of Ray Holly, a former council employee who has been employed right up to the time of his illness. Ray passed away yesterday morning. Ray was a valued employee of this organisation for some 13 years, and I'd like you just to be outstanding and reflect for a minute on the life of Ray Holly and his contribution to the fire. I believe there will be a memorial service held in the near future in his honour. Thank you, councillors. Now call for apologies for this meeting. We have a number of apologies. I prefer the General Manager to go through those, but certainly Councillor Walker, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Brewer, Councillor actually online, so that's very pleasing, and Councillor Higgins. So those four are the four. Thank you, sir. I'm happy to move those four apologies. Thank you, Councillor McCloskey, seconded Councillor Kinsey. Put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the minutes of the April meeting. Someone happy to move that those minutes to an accurate record. Councillor Jackson happy to move. Second. Councillor White, Councillor Jackson. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding those minutes, the April Ordinary Council meeting? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the disclosures of interest. I believe there are a couple of disclosures of interest that are to be noted.
I'm aware of two. Councillor Derrick, the Community High Class Council report concerning the tender, etc. for the airport works, and Councillor Van Aldon for the matter on the Plan Committee concerning extended flexible working hours agreement. Is that correct, councillors? That's just.
Thank you, sir. Additionally, Mr. Mayor, I will also declare interest for the meeting of the Warren Airport Operations Committee, which makes reference to that.
Thank you, Councillor Derrick.
Thank you.
And your forms in the can, please.
Someone happy to move that those disclosures, which we just noted, we noted, that's all we need to do.
Just make sure you comment at the appropriate time, either in open council or closed.
Councillors, I'm going to move the mayor a minute, which relates to the damaging increase in the emergency service levy cost, and I'm going to move that recommendation that's part of the business paper.
Ticket is not required.
Secondary is not required.
You might get lots of people there.
But council, the information is there for you to read. But we've seen a significant increase in emergency services levy. We're seeing 73% in state emergency services budget, 18 or something percent, 17% in the Fire and Rescue New South Wales budget. We've been capped at 3.7%. There has been a subsidy in place for the last couple of years in regard to the emergency services levy, but now we're carrying the full cost burden of that share. It is inequitable that we be carrying what is essentially a state government imposition. We've got to find the order of 100, right there last year, 180,000, as our emergency services levy. Something like
Overall, it was around 350, but
overall 250.
the component was about 174 for the RFS and 25 and 6 like that for
Yeah. So it's a fairly substantial imposition on our rating income.
Certainly others are even worse, Mr Mayor. Some of the larger councils with their 3.7% might be getting something like $2.8 million, and 2.3 million out of the 2.7, 2.8 million is their increased emergency services levy. Just imagine that.
Fortunately, we've taken the view that we've almost budgeted for the increase anyway, so we're not in the position that some other councils find themselves where they haven't actually budgeted to take on the full imposition. But nonetheless, it's cost shifting at its worst. And one of the points we were making to Minister Moriarty at the Alliance Western Council meeting is that there needs to be a significant oversight of Rural Fire Service and New South Wales Fire and Rescue when their budgets are increasing on a year-on-year basis. Where does that leave us on an ongoing basis? It's unsustainable. You know, a 73% increase in your budget is just unbelievable in this climate of rate peaking at 3.7%. So, local government New South Wales have very much taken this on board. They have been successful in the last couple of years in achieving some subsidy, but that subsidy is now, from the state government, is now out the window, and it becomes an unreasonable burden on councils. Perhaps we are happy to collect that money on behalf of the state government, but it becomes a separate issue to our rating issue. It shouldn't be coming out of rates. So I commend that recommendation to you, and encourage any further discussion. Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 7 on our agenda, the reports to the committee. The first of those, the meeting of the Economic Development and Promotions Committee. So we do that. Second, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So we were fortunate to have Lucy White from Destination Country and Outback New South Wales come to speak with us. She had some valuable insights. I think she's an excellent contact we've made. So I'd like to say thank you to Susie Barlow, our Economic Development and Visitation Manager, for bringing her in to speak with us. So she did do a bit of touring around while she was here, and yes, which will be really helpful for us in the future, particularly with the Destination Foreign Marches Task Force. So the recommendations relate to investment attraction training, so seeking to have Jessica Wilkinson to address the committee. The Economic Development Strategy Action Plan, that was emailed to us earlier in the week, and I think there was a hard copy here today as well. And thirdly, the recommendations from Destination Foreign Marches Task Force. So we had quite a productive first meeting. Our next meeting is coming up the week after next. So very much in the early stages of that task force at the moment, but yeah, I think we're sort of at the stage where setting our direction and planning how to move ahead pretty quickly. The main thing was arranging alternatives. If one of the representatives can't attend that meeting, just to try and make sure there's an even balance as best as possible with the 4 organisations involved in that task force. Happy to take any questions, but that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Derrick. Councillor, we'll see that economic development strategy and action plan placed on public exhibition. Interesting to see what sort of feedback we get from that public exhibition, and gratifying to see that plan is actually ready for public exhibition, because it's been a little time coming, but we're slowly getting there. Any further comments, questions regarding the report of the Economic Development Committee?
Mr. Mayor, the version 8 that's been emailed to everyone and a hard copy is just ready. I've just been to tidy up of formatting and just no changes.
Just a slight minor word change that's using.
A mistake. No, yeah. EA doing a good job tidying things up, Mr. Mayor. And it'll improve again with people making comment and understanding their responsibilities that are set out in the action.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the report of the Economic Development Committee, Economic Development and Promotions Committee? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the second meeting on our agenda, the Plant Committee. Someone have to move the minutes of the plant. How long is the meeting? So we need to move in second, and now Councillor Bernal Lonk has moved from the meeting. Yeah. So doesn't matter, we get at the meeting. A move, it doesn't matter, we just need a seconder. Everybody's at the meeting. So Councillor Whiteley, Councillor McCloskey.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I commend the minutes of the Plant Committee meeting to you, and call on my seconder to comment.
Just through you, Mayor. Just a question with regards to the working agreement, the flexible working hours agreement. And I may have asked the question out, but I can't remember. In here it's saying Monday to Friday, hours over and above ordinary hours at time and a half. Case of weekend works, where's that?
I know it's back to the award. And so the weekend work happens only when it's really like typical requirement.
Yes.
Serious stabilisation, huge.
Understand the circumstance.
Yeah.
The circumstance of the work will dictate whether you need to go out there on the weekend outside the parameters of the agreement.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
And then back to the award.
Yes.
So I'd like to further the general manager, but basically what we're doing here is extending the agreement that was already in place with some minor changes which the general manager might just allude to, which makes it a much easier system to administer, and it's actually beneficial to the workforce.
Ever since 1992, part of the agreement has been that the person who drives a council planned item out to the job, back from the job, gets paid the overtime, and the men who are in that vehicle, in that planned item, like a tender truck or a water cart or whatever, other people get a thing called travel. And once upon a time, there was a split up of the overtime / travelling amongst everyone.
There's a mixture of both.
Yeah, and then this time it's what we're saying is really everyone who starts at the depot and finishes at the depot, if it goes over the normal working day, they get time, either time and a half or time, whatever it is, it's a little bit, it's in the favour of the employee, but it's much easier to actually then work out time sheet wise, and we're actually talking the cost of a drink.
Yeah.
Per day. So the difference, and it's just so much easier giving men a little bit more, helping us actually understand what they're doing per day.
if in light of that, through this Mayor, given that minor change in terms of deleting the travel and implementing a rate from A to B all day, being happily accepted by the men, they don't have, because it's in their favour.
They're the ones who came up with that idea, and staff investigated and checked the costs and just know that it's in the favour of the employee. We think that it's still a good idea, helps us, and hopefully it's one of the positives we can go back to the men. But we also will go back to the men in a positive say. The council is only prepared to actually, like all other agreements, be maximum 5 times during Monday to Friday, which is the agreement for the last couple of years, Monday to Friday.
Used to be also Saturday.
I understand. I know it was the whole weekend. It was Monday to Sunday in the
Under
times
public
that
holidays.
we put it together. New culture.
Demographics and the culture of the organisation's changed.
And look, Mr Mayor, what we're saying is we want to use day labour as much as possible, but it actually has to be efficient.
So the recommendation there, council, is this, as we read, is that the general manager and the manager of engineering services be authorised to finalise the negotiations. So this is what's come out of the initial negotiations. We're going back to the manager just to finalise that this will. It will be a continuation, and these are the parameters under which it will continue with the men and the United Services Union.
Just in light of that, you mentioned the United Service Union. Given that it's never really sat au fait with them, where are they at?
In my time, it was a surprise when USU signed the last agreement. It's never ever been signed. So they've agreed this time, last time, or on the one that's existing at the moment, and instead of just the individual
It's
men.
like trying to get water to run uphill with them.
And that's correct, and the water ran uphill this time, last time. Hopefully the same thing will happen.
Yeah, it's a much better outcome if the USU are on board.
Oh,
Yeah, certainly, the tide isn't holding up. So, yeah, delegated authority to the general manager and the manager of engineering services just to finalise that agreement, which hopefully will occur imminently. Yes,
Could I just ask the general manager of the engineering department to comment whether there's any more update on the quarry, the cost of the quarry?
Mr Mayor, all it is at the moment is there's a draft agreement back with the divisional manager engineering services and I. We are taking our time to make sure the agreement's as covering all the things that the plant committee wanted to cover. And when that's finalised, we'll talk to Neil Earthmoving a bit more and then show the committee. We're taking our time to make sure it's as good as possible.
Thank you.
yes, I think we have various thoughts as to what should be included in the agreement, and they just need to be worked through and with some sort of detail, so that when we get an agreement, although it may be in draft form, it's really covered off on almost every little eventuality. We just need it to be fair and reasonable to both parties.
Mr. Mayor, in principle, this will be beneficial economically wise for our supplying our gravel.
All part of the analysis will include the divisional manager finance administration, finance-wise, to see that we're actually getting a sealing aggregate product and dust and DGB 20 or similar that is relevant to the area with minus the typical transport costs.
Yeah, as a whole, Mr. Mayor, as a whole, but obviously commercial enterprise is wants to do this because it's beneficial to them. We need to make sure that it's also beneficial to us.
Exactly. It's been very much taken on board by the committee. Councillor White, Councillor McCloskey,
No
comment? Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the minutes of the plant committee?
Oh, seriously, I do have one. What,
Certainly.
just in light of the slasher that's in the wings to be bought, is there any progress on that?
It's still getting organised.
just I saw some plant doing a job that a number of plants that one plant could do.
No,
And
that's
that's why
still
that plant.
Still getting organised.
Thank you, Councillor McCloskey. Any further comments, questions regarding the minutes of the Plan Committee meeting? Any further, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving to the meeting of the Airport Operations Committee, recommendations coming out of the. Sorry, we'll just wait for a minute until Councillor Van Elbom returns to the meeting.
Back at 8:57.
Yeah.
And Councillor Derek has had an interest in recommending at 8:57 as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Beautiful day.
Council, we'll move on to the meeting of the Warren Airport Operations Committee. Someone happy to move that recommendation, the information received noted. Councillor McCloskey, happy to move that. Second, Councillor Whiteley. Councillor McCloskey.
Yeah, it's recommend the minutes and the report. The meeting base centred around two items, and the items be the drainage situation with regards to runway 0321 and the status quo of where we're at in terms of the terminal building. Now, both of those issues were enlightened on by the infrastructure projects manager in terms of a verbal report. Now, just as a sideline to that, I know in the Mannix meeting, issues with verbal reports being raised. But further on to his report, further information regarding both of those matters are listed for determination and consideration later in the business paper, which, well, yeah, will lead us to some discussion, I believe. But in terms of the drainage, a number of cost options, the terminal building as well, the cost of it now that it's become apparent. Yeah.
Councillor McCloskey, I think you was perhaps suggesting that these, within the light of the new information and the fact that they're verbal reports, you would like to see this go back to the airport committee for a more serious.
This to go back to the airport committee, and potentially any future reports that come to this committee and probably all committees as a whole, that they be of a written or otherwise nature, because to have a report presented to you on the day and try and digest what it's trying to tell you is somewhat difficult, whereas opposed to if the report is given to you in the paper days in advance, you can comprehend what it's saying and get your head around it and try and understand it. So I would encourage more written reports as opposed to verbal reports in future, not only in this meeting, but in all meetings.
Mr. Mayor, I understand what the process has been is that with full understanding is minus the tender information, unless what we're doing is not putting to council committees tender analysis when those committees actually have members of the community involved in the committee.
Yep.
Same with fees and charges, for an obvious reason. So, sure, there was to the March 2022 meeting a lot of information on what was proposed at the airport terminal building. Same with the drainage and extra works. As information was put together, the finalisation was being all put together in the tender analysis report when we knew the prices of the terminal building, we knew how much it was going to cost. but a majority of information except the tender analysis and information has been to the committee.
Understand
That's
that.
how we were always going to do it, sure.
But for me, the flying ointment is the dollar amount
Oh,
in terms of the report that's further in the paper.
committee, the whole matter in conjunction with the tender, we had that analysis, but I'm just trying to advise that relevant information, even though it was verbal again in this meeting, before that in March, there was a fair amount of information on both the terminal building design and direction, and same with the drainage. Now, the drainage direction is slightly wrong, and that's why you after being advised that there should be a better option, that's why you've got a late bit of information saying here is a better option, but similar to the same price as what's contained.
Question through you, Mr. Mayor. Question.
Analysis report.
In relation to the terminal building and the frame that's currently on the ground out there, are the costs anywhere shown or within any of the budgets in terms of the redesign of the frame to suit the potential new building?
The redesign has already been costed and paid for. The change and amendment of what's required is contained within the miscellaneous cost report, costa.
Yeah, well, that 144,000.
Includes everything that's required, plus the powers on and the stormwater drainage stuff.
Councillor Whiteley.
In previous councils, or I haven't seen one since I've been here, but is there ever a business or cost analysis of the income from external factors, re the hire of the proposed terminal building or the military use of that runway? I just have concerns about the best part of $1 million in the terminal building and the drainage. The drainage is obviously needed, and the best way to go possible for that is designed. What we received last night at 6 o'clock, I was more au fait with than what was in the business paper. I think that still needs to be massaged. The drainage is super important. The safety concerns of the drains need to be assessed. But as a planning and taking a heap of money out of our infrastructure fund for a terminal that was, I understand, originally thinking of under 200,000, now going to 700,000, I think we need to seriously consider.
Councillor McCloskey, with your indulgence, could we add a second part to the
Certainly,
recommendation?
Mr. Mayor.
That perhaps that any potential future works associated with airport infrastructure be presented to the airport committee for full consideration prior to coming to the council. Would that sit with you, Bruce, if we were to add a second recommendation?
Say it again, Mr. Mayor.
I'll say it again, that any potential future works associated with airport infrastructure, sorry, Jody, my apologies. That any, yeah, right, okay, sorry, you're up, what there. Any potential future works associated with airport infrastructure be presented to the airport committee for their consideration prior to consideration by council. That if you so choose.
Yep, happy with that.
I understand, presented in appropriate reporting.
Yeah,
If you want to understand.
Their consideration prior to presentation to council on their consideration.
Sorry, what do you mean?
Well, any potential future works associated with the airport infrastructure be presented to the Airport Operations Committee for their consideration prior to presentation to council for their consideration. So prior to going to council.
Yes, it needs to be prior to council.
Yes. Prior to being presented to council.
What's that?
No, get rid of that, get the end consideration, get rid of that.
What I was saying is presented in full reporting. Because what you're saying is that perhaps some of the verbal stuff is not quite as good. But please remember that the March 2023 committee meeting had all this presented.
Again, Gary, I'm not denying that. The flying in the ointment for me at this point in time is the dollar figures, which wasn't presented at the March meeting.
That type of information has never been presented to committees that have community members in it. And
Right, notwithstanding that, the answer gives to me, that may be the case, but now that information is presented to council, and as a councillor, I have concerns.
no, I understand. We've always had concerns when it's with the dollars that we're suddenly discovered.
Sorry, Councillor Whiteley, I'll come to you in a second. Gentlemen, did you want to include something in the second part of the recommendation? What did you suggested a couple of words.
Any other future works associated with airport infrastructure be presented in appropriate written reporting.
Yeah, format, whatever the word might be.
Written reporting to the Airport Operations Committee for consideration prior to being presented to council.
Councillor Frost, are you happy with Councillor Whiteley? I think you were second on this.
Yeah. But my only other comment is, whilst I agree with the general manager that specific details of tendering should be within council, I think the Airport Committee should be made available the top and bottom figure or what the more than approximate cost of is going to be. I realise that you don't want to go into a full tender operation with and I appreciate the general manager's comments, but the committee needs to know within a ballpark figure what the cost.
Mr. Mayor, it was provided that we were concerned about the cost, and the Airport Committee said, we understand, please convince the council that this economic activity is most important to Warren Shire and to try to make sure that a terminal building and drainage systems are appropriately constructed to progress a quality project. Talking Committee of the Whole, closed council, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Going back to the minutes, just an issue in terms of the general business. In terms of a comment made at the March meeting and also the meeting just held regarding the tidy up of the area out there, still hasn't been undertaken.
We're working on it. We're slashing the.
We're working on it. It was first mentioned 4 months ago.
My apologies, we have been busy trying to catch up with all the work that we've been doing.
Another thing to Mr. Mayor, if I may. In the report regarding the drainage, the potential runoff problem of aircraft into the drain and the potential lack of width in the crossover between the apron and the taxiway that runs down past the private hangars. It might be prudent if there's some work done with the delineation of the conage that needs to be around the extremities of the drain and the culvert, given the cones that are there now are non-existent in some places, discoloured because they're faded, and where they're faded, you can't see them because they're overgrown with grass.
Thank you.
Councillor,
Councillor Smeaton might reply and then.
Through your perspective, we have just had new cones delivered, new yellow cones delivered. There was some yellow, white and reds delivered previously. We have just had CASA here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday last week. Doing our audit, yes. And I haven't received the full final report as yet, but there are a number of points that they've raised that will have to be responded to within, so 15 days, I think it was. Not corrected within that timeframe, but a response back to CASA within that timeframe. They were very understanding of issues that have been going on in the last year or so, particularly with the flooding and things along those natures. So they weren't overzealous with that. But there are a number of items that need to be reviewed. Some issues potentially with the taxiway and the new hangars that are there and the widths that don't appear to be compliant. So once the report's received, it will be submitted to the committee and then back through to the council.
Thank you for that. Any further comments or questions regarding the Airport Operations Committee? Councillor Kinsey?
Has the water at all, has that area been surveyed that holds up water over the Nevertire irrigation scheme channel? Has that area ever been surveyed to see if the water will actually go to the Sandy Creek? So we end up with a massive big flood there every time we get a major rain event, and it just sits there for months.
I'll refer to the General Manager first, and then Councillor McCloskey might have your comment potentially.
that's the stormwater drainage improvement project, to actually have drains progress towards that area and a pump out system going underneath the by a pump siphon and into Sandy Creek.
Right, so that's in play, is it?
That's in the report analysis.
Yeah, I saw that there, that's right.
And that is, we believe, what's been given to you is a better option than a solar powered pump that doesn't pump enough. Pumping 150 litres per second.
Councillor McCloskey, and then.
Just in light of that, speaking from history, for want of a better word, in my time there was no survey done other than the fact to know that the water wanted to gravitate to the southern end of 0321.
Yes.
What was done prior to the earthworks and the remediation of 0321 and the dirt being dumped down at the bottom end of 0321 and blocking what was somewhat of an area for it to drain to, there were mighty drains cut with a laser on the edge of 0321 out to the outer extremities into another wider drain, done by Merv Rumble with his laser bucket on grade, down into what was a shallow borrow pit in that 48 acres, I think it is, at the bottom end of 0321, to try and get some of the water that congregates on 0321 to drain away. But now that's all been, to the best of my knowledge, well, destroyed for want of a word because of the work that's been undertaken in the improvements to 0321 and the spoil and the excess material dumped down to where the water used to drain. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The problem is the mitre drain system that was like that was what one of the problems that CASA had, and that's why it had to be removed. I will not take that as gospel. That's what has been told to us. That was one of the main problems. It looked right with one big drain system, but this mitre drain system was what if something ran off with one instead of just one. But that's what's happened.
May I reply to that?
No, please don't, because I'm not 100% certain, Mr. Mayor.
I think, sorry, Councillor Whiteley, then I think we close the discussion here. We defer to the Airport Operations Committee for the discussion in a detailed sense of getting the right result we want on the terminal and the drainage.
May I just make your comments that this that needs to go back to the airport drainage committee. There is considerations out there that, like, the Sandy Creek floodwater will back into that area, and then pond there as well as the rainfall. This needs to be detailed with the airport committee and probably some other experts to work out a proper set resolution.
Thank you, Councillor White. I think it's time to close the discussion on this one. Any further comments or questions regarding the committee recommendations from the Airport Operations Committee? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to, no, we have to ask for Councillor Derek to be included in the meeting again. Thank you. Moving on to the meeting of the Warren Public Arts Committee held on Tuesday the 9th of May. Councillor Jackson happy to move the recommendation. Second. Councillor Kinsey. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just the recommendation. Just a few highlights from the meeting very quickly. First of all, we welcomed a new community member to our committee, Mary Small, and I think she'll be a great addition with her insight and connections within the Aboriginal community. So a great addition to our committee. And not included in this meeting, we would have seen advertising go out for a new committee member. So we're growing, and there's still that interest from the community, which is great. The main items of business were the wraps to go around the toilets in CBD and Lions Park. The final images were not available at the time of the meeting. Subsequent to that meeting, the images were circulated to the committee for comment and feedback. That process is still, as I understand it, underway. There's been some works taken with coloured concrete, bits and pieces. And the final key thing I want to comment on was it was discussed that we had a formal guest opening ceremony. If you like, once these works are completed, just do something it's a good news story, I think, for the community and council working together. Committee were all very keen that would happen because with the Lions Park one, there's also the contribution made by former Lions member, Mr. Orb Dinsdale. And Lions Club are going to be organising a plaque to be placed there, and of course we would include them in the opening celebrations. So hopefully that will all happen fairly shortly. Thank you very much.
Any comments, questions regarding the minutes of the public arts committee meeting? We've said our projects almost at completion. Nothing further? Put that all those in favour? Yes. Carried. Moving on to the minutes of the Showground Racecourse Committee on the 9th of May. Councillor Bruce, you happy to move it? Councillor Bruce? Are you happy to move?
Yes, I'll move that, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Second? Councillor Whiteley, you have the second, thank you. I think Councillor Whiteley is going to speak on your behalf, is that correct, Councillor Bruce? Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Whiteley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Bruce. Under sickness, I hope she's better soon. The Showground Racecourse Committee was reasonably well attended on the 9th of May. The projects down there, Equestrian Centre, the Auckland Lounge, and are progressing. There was discussions and ongoing negotiations over the fees and charges of the Equestrian Centre. There was some discussion about adding to the water supply to the Equestrian Centre. Really, if those big tanks down there become empty in a drought. The toilet facilities for our show, ladies' toilets, divisional engineer will comment if I'm wrong, will be temporary for the show but adequate, and the permanent structure will be aimed to be finished mid-July. The ladies' toilet block is demolished and it'll be a temporary appropriate toilet for the show. The disabled access for the ramp and the GB Talk Lounge quotes are in waiting for funding for that. The mural that will be put on the toilet block is underway and will be there by the time the things are built. With the race, the track, there's some a couple of things with that. One is security fencing around the track, and monies from Racing New South Wales needs further investigation of where the cost of that and what they will contribute. As an irrigation system, automatic irrigation system for the inside of the track, Racing New South Wales will subsidise the watering from the inside of the track, but not the outside. The planning for the irrigation system, that the pumping and water supply for that will enable an outside sprinkler system to be added to it if we get funding. We had some discussions re vandalism and at the complex. Discussions went for some time. Some thoughts were that back gates and front gates opened or shut. At this stage, both gates are shut after working hours, and a key system, people that are entitled to be in there can apply for a key. That probably needs to be spread around, and so people know of that. General business, there was still some concern about the soil, top dressing soil for the racetrack being contaminated, and there was also some discussions over where that is and keeping that fenced in. Generally, the tone of the meeting was that people are starting to pull together a little bit down there, or the user groups. There's still some discussions over minor details. One problem is the grant that has been possibly got for the new yards, cattle come horse yards. The cost of those is a lot greater than the grant, and there needs to be some action on that, or we possibly could lose that grant.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. That last point you're talking about in terms of coming out, that is in the book of the show societies. Is that where that sits? Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, the Show Society had their planning meeting the same. There wasn't a representative at the show, at our meeting, the showground, because unfortunately the two meetings clashed. There was a meeting after the meeting in brackets where they were at with others, and that was, there was some thinking together, but it is a process.
What's the time frame, Councillor? What did you? I know I'm asking you off the top of your head, but do you know what the time frame is for the Show Society to get moving on that particular project?
The infrastructure, our infrastructure manager seemed to indicate to the meeting that it'd be better either all or none. The general manager might comment on when we lose the 60 grand.
I would suggest with that movement, we'd be seriously in trouble by September this year. And unfortunately, over the last 12 months, there were options for that organisation to actually drive it away for up to $90,000 for further grant work, and it just didn't come to fruition. And certainly, it'd be nice to have some sort of costing towards it, showing full design. That's the cattle yards. The exclusion fencing is about $57,000 left, and we're actually putting a request for quotation out for Racing New South Wales to know exactly the gap to progress, hopefully Racing New South Wales funding the gap, and then negotiations of what amount they think that is applicable, because we think the exclusion fencing should be the whole area and not some impractical thing getting too close to the racetrack. That's all part of, hopefully, to say, guys, we're contributing 57,000, come up with whatever's the gap, and without arguing the toss, because it's practically better to actually put it where the current fencing is. But let's cross fingers that we come within, we think it's an amount that's always been mentioned. It's 2.1 metres. We probably still have to try to do some sort of movement of the current, somewhere between 50 and 200 animals that are in the place sometimes, because they sometimes disappear, but want to come back whenever there's a race meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to comment. The current inflation environment, or the last 2 years inflation environment over steel, particularly in fencing material, is really impacted on these voluntary organisations getting their planning done. The initial plan for the cattle yards, I think, was a factor of 3 of the 60 grand. Then there is getting the organisation together so that it is also useful for horses as well as cattle, which are designed different. It's a certain process.
Absolutely. I think the important thing is that the Showground Racecourse Committee keep progressing these matters, the cattle yards, the fencing, the internal irrigation for the racetrack, external, we just need to keep moving on these so that we just continue to improve and upgrade the whole facility.
I don't know if Councillor Bruce can comment, but in last 12 or 18 months, I feel that the user groups are combining better, slowly.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, the next concern is really probably the cost of the whole irrigation system. We've got a grant of $300,000 inclusive of GST, and even though what's so very positive about it, if we come up with a positive project for the irrigation system, which really in the end replaces the pull along system of the last 30 or 40 years, is that even with the 80% funding by Basin New South Wales and use of that 272 for the 20% and then extra stuff for I'll call it the outside irrigation system, the amount so far, I'll call it budget amount is pretty big.
Oh, yes, it rivals the terminal building.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor McCloskey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, given that the show is on next weekend, everything's in hand and working towards everything being right, the temporary toilets, everything.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, the portable toilets will be delivered on Thursday, connected, so that they're ready for Saturday and then removed on Monday. All the works are progressing at the moment with the for the preparations. So yes.
So who's, Brandon, are you liaising with the Show Society just to check that, yes? I'm not getting too sure, who's the, enlighten me.
One of our officers.
Is someone needs secretary? Okay, we just need to have that communication so that we don't get to the last minute and find, that's not quite how one party or the other envisions something.
Now, I have been speaking with the secretary.
Yep.
With the liaise with her about the placement and so forth of where we're going to be putting the equipment, and there's no issues.
Yes, all good. Yeah, thank you. Good. Councillor McCloskey and then Councillor Jackson.
Just given that it's indicated the temporary toilet block's turning up on Thursday next week, you're confident and happy that the window between turning up and show day, but one day, it'll be installed, functional, operational, and any gremlins sorted out?
Well, through you, Mr Mayor, the facility is a purpose-built containerised toilet building that has 5 stalls and appropriate hand basins. All it is running a supply, the sewer line into the little pumping station that's there near the existing building, or where the building was, putting a water supply to it and some power. And so all of the appropriate contractors that I need to do that have been lined up, and that'll all happen on Thursday, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I was just wondering if there is an update on the 2 matters where General Manager was to meet with the police sergeant regarding patrol for action.
Not yet.
And the second was the contaminated soil, investigation. And something that in place so that it doesn't keep happening.
There was some cotton trash that they were going to use, and then once they started looking at what was in it, they decided not to use it. So they've been taken it away as requested. So yes, there is a compound to be built that's to be finished. The contractor that we've engaged has taken an age to construct this thing. He keeps assuring me that it'll be done by the end of the week. He's not quite sure whether he's committed to which end of the week.
Which week?
Yes, unfortunately, and he's very difficult to get hold of. But we're sort of halfway through the process. All the pole posts and stays are in place. It's just a matter now of getting the wire and gates in place. So it is coming ever so slowly, unfortunately.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Go ahead.
Just one, the perennial PA.
Mr Mayor, they were looking at checking that yesterday again to make sure that there were no significant issues. We are limited on who we can call on to do repairs The organisation that used to look after it is no longer involved with New South Wales Racing, and I haven't yet been able to determine who New South Wales Racing have put in place as their PA system people for their race meeting days. Which I don't believe there'll be an issue on for the day of the show.
We just double check that.
As Robbie was checking it after a meeting we had with him yesterday.
Great, thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the minutes of the Showground Racecourse Committee? Thank you, nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the Millions of Roads Committee, someone happy to move the recommendation to the Millions of Roads Committee, Councillor Whiteley, you're happy to move that, second, Councillor McCloskey, Councillor Whiteley.
Roads Committee meeting on the 10th of May, Sylvester, our Divisional Manager Engineering Services, led us through a road safety scenario, doing a our road safety plan, or the precursor to doing our road safety plan. Was, you know, it was an interactive thing, and I think was positive, and basically road safety in the bush equals the speed of impact, and I think that was impressed on everybody. We will see the safety plan to be presented for comment in the future, near future. Sylvester has revamped the reporting of our road, the way we read graphs on our road usage, and it's a lot easier to follow and a lot more logical. The guys at work are progressing really well, in my personal opinion. I travel this shire as much as anybody, and I think the men on the ground and those that are organising them should be congratulations on what's happening about. I see the start of the Warren Road, or the Canberra Road, which you want to term it, is starting to happen, and I would defer to the General Manager. We have some monies for the Martha Guy Road arrived, or we were indicated that they will arrive. If you'd like to comment, Mr. Gentleman.
So a few points over the top of the Roads Committee is, first of all, the Divisional Manager Engineering Services and myself have been attempting to, he's got 3 manager positions that are vacant at the moment, because the assets and project manager position that used to be under the Divisional Manager Fund Administration, still working finance-wise with the Divisional Manager Fund Administration. That's one position we're attempting to fill. The other one is the Flood Restoration Special Projects Manager. We've been interviewing a number of people through some agencies for the employees. We cross the fingers, and we think we've found several worthy of consideration for appointment. On Monday the 29th meeting, this Monday, Stephen Glenn, who used to be the interim general manager, who's also a civil engineer, has been appointed for a temporary roads infrastructure manager to help. That will be very helpful to Sylvester, myself, and the roads overseer. The roads overseer probably needs a holiday too, to just progress. I'm just wanting to make sure that these projects, quality control, budget control, work health and safety control are as good as possible, and the management and supervision level needs to be improved so we don't cause ourselves difficulty. Collard Training Road reconstruction under the repair program, I believe, is finished. Barama Access Road commenced. Stabilisation starts on the 30th of May next week. It should be finished and settled within the next couple of weeks. That crew will come back and start doing some heavy patching work on the Martha Guy Road, some shoulder work on the Martha Guy Road, Adora Road, regional road, so and then the major crew that's tidying up the training will go further out and camp and do a lot of the 333 heavy patching through the causeways. There's a fair amount. So those two crews will be doing lots of work over the next couple of months. Just have to grin and bear and wait for things to start to be done. We're very pleased with the 450 out of 900,000 for the repair program of 23-24. It's been pretty well set to go ahead. Good timing that the whole project could be happening. There's an excavator, our excavator around is doing some test holes out at Toucan Pit, which we've got to continue with a good relationship with the owner of Toucan Pit. Expanding out, we're expecting that a D10 after this test hole, get everything right, will be out there this weekend, we hope, pushing up, ready for travelling out in that job, travelling out to 7515 where construction of the culverts are, and eventually stockpiling for the Nevertire Bogan Road.
Just pick up on something the General Manager said.
Yes, sir.
In terms of Toucan Pit, you're talking about a dozer going out there and working.
Yeah.
Is she pushing down or pushing up?
Probably mixing the
Because you need to mix the overburden. You need to mix the overburden with the gravel. You don't separate them.
No, we're not. We're not. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, don't separate them because you'll end up.
We'll take further advice from you, but that's exactly what Mayor's saying is doing.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
It's good, it makes it better.
Yeah, it does. Push it together.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Thank you. D10, Mr Mayor, is applicable rates, and from a reputable firm.
Through Mr Mayor, if I may. Is it by chance David Baker from Gilgandra?
No, he's one of the busiest of the lot, but the roads overseer and Sylvester have made sure that a good reputable firm, Battleline as well.
Yeah, now the reason I say that, Baker in the past has been predominantly the man up there.
We can't get it.
He
The
knows
next option was Neil's, they're not available either, and Battleline have an experienced operator of the D10 who'll get properly instructed. I'll get some help from you as well, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, just in light of the comments too, I noticed in the paper reference made to what Councillor Whiteley said about funding forthcoming, particularly with regards to the regional road out here, Main Road 202 and the causeway at the back of Gildan. You alluded to the works will potentially start there in the near future. Is the works going to happen in the first instance of a temporary nature or of a permanent nature?
Look, I can't comment completely. It's just down to two operational, and knowing absolutely everything about it. There's actually flood damage work, regional road repair work, and I'll call it, Mr Mayor, regional local road repair program work all together. It's just good timing. The next month we'll get flood damage done. Then straight after the 1st of July, the repair program work. It's one good project of more than 3.3 kilometres.
It's getting up to there.
Yeah.
So
A little bit on the other side.
the intention is to virtually reconstruct from the intersection of State Highway 11 on the Martha Guy Road 202 out to beyond that, the pretty poor patch near the entrance to the new seeds, and then beyond that there's another patch that's very ordinary, and then there's the irrigation channel where it's subsided after being filled in a number of years ago. So the intention, according to the manager of engineering services, we will get all that distance done in a permanent way in the end of the
It
day.
could be half a kilometre to a kilometre on the western northern side of the bridge.
Yes. The intention is to go cover all those bad areas, Councillor McCloskey, as I understand it. If the Division of Engineering Services review, I'd be asking to confirm that that is my understanding. So there's all those different programs of funding, meaning we can go that sort of distance in one go.
Group it together, one project basically, one big
Good
one.
time.
Just, because the mayor can attest to that section of the back of Gilman Road is ugly,
Yes.
for want of a better description.
Now, Mr Mayor, to add more information, expecting from about the 1st of June, the large milling and replacement of the AC work by Transport for New South Wales is expected to be undertaken between the 1st of June and the 22nd of June by a contractor by Transport for New South Wales. We should do the Tiger Bay, the intersection with Industrial Access Road and the Yulmar Creek. And then that's why in the Committee of the Whole Close Councils, we're working on using the same contractor at a good rate to do the AC work in the Main Street and a few other extras around town after the 22nd of June.
Councillor McCloskey.
That's really different. The roundabout, did you say that's?
Except the roundabout, not the roundabout.
Not the roundabout.
Transport for New South Wales is still working on that. They're hoping that in the next, cannot guarantee it because it's not us. We're working with them. But I'm hoping by December 2023, we've got to reconstruct the roundabout as well. They can't do both at the same time. But we will stop just before the roundabout.
Yep.
They've got majority of works on the highway, and we're trying to negotiate with them to make sure that they contribute properly to the annulus reconstruction. But just so you know, the roundabout will not be done. Our bit will look good. They come back eventually and do the roundabout.
Councillor White.
Just a question from me. I see a lot of paint on the road, the heavy patching on the highway. Is we going to be involved in that?
We're hoping, Mr Mayor, subject to our availability and trying to organise our suitable crews.
Also comment, if it's all right, Mr Mayor, that there was a gaggle of RMS engineers at the highway intersection at Nevertire during the week, doing measurements, and there must be something being planned at the Nevertire highway intersection.
Probably, Mr Mayor, only reconstructed highway signage that you'll see in traffic committee notes. That's probably what it's about.
Can't surmise what it is. We'll see what happens.
They're aware of a future project to fix up that intersection. So very long trucks aren't hanging out into the intersection.
Thank you for that information. We progressed, sorry, just one more. We progressed with the side track. Sorry, just so that councillors aware, there will be a side track, 7515 going to Canberra. There will be side tracks as those culverts are placed. So just an awareness issue for everyone, just to say, just be aware that.
First three culverts this side, through the pines, we have to be very, very careful with the trees. The contractor does seem to think that the trees, because of scarring and things like that, there are some rubbish trees that they think that just need to be moved a bit and side-tracking around. The second option is to do the first three culverts half at a time, but we prefer to be able to do some through the tree line, and so the contractor, the engineering services department, and the environmental consultant are trying to work out whether we can meander through the tree line. It's not 100% guaranteed. Otherwise, variation quotations will do half of the time. Prefer not that, but it's better that we can't sidetrack. Sorry, we can't travel people around the extreme long way.
No, that's not, well,
Just this, council information. Councillor White, did you have one?
Just one minor question over that. Was there any reason why all that concrete structure was delivered to town and not delivered on the site?
The engineer was just trying to collect it all up in one location first.
The major expense moving.
No, thank you, councillor White. Any further comments, questions regarding the committee of the roads committee? Councillor McCloskey.
just in relation to the road, whether it can be answered by anyone at the table there. Is the Dudley Road operational and open? Can you tell me?
No, it can't, it's probably still reasonably affected by, we're trying our hardest to try to get some sort of form of reconstruction. There's more to do. Eventually, we're using flood damage work on it, but we just can't do everything, and we've probably still got more work to do. Item 6.1, we're just trying to keep everyone informed of the progress on that. Particularly the last dot point on page 2 of the report. Pretty important that if something eventually does happen, that the council will be making a decision on whether any form of dedicated public road, whether it's going to be maintained or not maintained by the council.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the roads committee report? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to the minutes of the Sporting Facilities Committee. On the 10th of May. I'm happy to move it if that's acceptable. On the 2nd, Councillor McCloskey. Yeah, that's all right. Again, just a fairly productive meeting in terms of continuing to see the works progress. We will talk about the pool program. I'm just going through the action checklist. The pool program in committee of the whole closed council, so that we can have a fairly frank discussion there. Also, in a similar vein, perhaps the amenities block at Carter Oval, discuss that. The one that probably we need to be just aware of, in my view, is the difficulty that we're having in sourcing lights for Victoria Oval, or the what is it, and the bulbs, what do we call them? Yeah, bulbs. The bulbs. But in that those lights are now getting to an age where everything's being replaced with LED. We replaced 28 globes, and that's all we can frame into as a council. As soon as you could procure, probably needed in the end 40 once we got up, once we're established. And so it's Raymond, as in his capacity, has been chasing more of those globes. But keep in mind that we'll probably need to change it over in time to LED in Victoria, and that at the moment we had a quote from Reece when they were doing Carter to do exactly that, and it was of the order of $250,000 or so. Yeah. So just an awareness thing, something that we'll have to work towards in the future, looking up those lights. Upside, if cricketers were able to go to Carter, that's probably not as much of an issue as it would be otherwise, but nonetheless, the lights are very satisfactory for rugby league, rugby union at present, but yeah, forthcoming difficulties and issues that we need to resolve. Anyone have any further comments, questions regarding the minutes of the Sporting Facilities meeting? Yes, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering, I know it only happened on the 26th of April, but has there been any response from user groups in respect to recycling programs for the general waste bins during fixtures?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have received one response.
Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, was that response positive response?
Unfortunately not, no.
Any further comments, questions regarding the minutes of the sporting facilities meeting? Any discussion, put that, all those in favour? Against, carried. I'm just mindful of the time, councillor, that we have a commitment to go to the biggest morning tea it only begins at 10 o'clock. We can manage another one. I think the traffic committee, though, it'll be seamless for the one. Someone happy to move it.
Derek will manage that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Derek, happy to move the minutes as the acting chair of that committee. Councillor Derek, happy to move. Second, councillor Jackson, councillor Derek.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I was asked to chair this committee on behalf of Councillor Taylor, who was absent. Two recommendations here regarding some signage to address safety concerns at the intersection of Canterbury Road and the Wingfield Access Road. So that's fairly straightforward, I think. The second recommendation is in regard to a request about signage on the roundabout. So that recommendation is being made with Vice Transport for New South Wales, who was represented at the meeting. Jason Nicholson. Basically, the guidelines are fairly firm on what signage is permitted on state highways, including obviously the Oxley Highway through town. So that's where that recommendation is coming from. There were a couple of other items discussed, which are in the minutes here in the business paper, so I'm happy to answer any questions, but just commenting those two recommendations to council, please.
Thank you, councillor Derek. Any comments, questions, councillor McCloskey?
Yeah, 3 years to me. Just note with interest, particularly with item 6.1, the sign of the roundabout, and the reason for not allowing individual business not being approved, like signage on state highways. Yes, caravan parks and motels, fair given.
They asked Mr Mayor for IGA, not supermarket. Well, I mean, another good example, we'll be allowed to put public toilet, which we're going to do. But it's not for an individual business to be able to say IGA, blue sign,
No.
or any type of sign.
No, but that's what I'm saying though. I'm sure I've seen individual businesses be a motel or a caravan park with
But it
signs.
doesn't say the type, what motel it is.
No, but like has it there, it has a picture depicting, or a bed depicting a motel down the end of the
One of
street.
the ones, Mr Mayor, over the years that probably shouldn't have happened, but did. But it can't be like an individual business. It needs to be like public toilet.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm just alluding to, this is no, but you go out there.
Cafe.
Yeah, you go out there and find caravan parks pointed on the highway, down the end of the block. So anyway,
Point taken, councillor McCloskey, but yes, changing times perhaps.
yeah.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? I missed that. Regarding the traffic, the minutes of the traffic committee?
What's this about, this IGA?
Now, they asked as a business if they could get permission to put an IGA sign at the intersection here.
Oh,
And the traffic committee says no, because on the state highway, individual type businesses aren't allowed. But if there was a generalist sign, like the white on blue, public toilet, that type of thing is allowed. Different if it was a tourism sign, and you actually have to get permission, a tourism sign, for example, what eventually is going to be set up is the white on brown, Warren Museum and Art Gallery. But we have to get permission from Transport for New South Wales to do that, and that's actually through the tourism organisation and Transport for New South Wales. Slightly individual, but it's because it's tourism, but not if it's, that's all. Years ago, there was a motel one.
good IGA, I can't see it that way.
As you mean, not really cafe either.
No.
Thank you for that. Any further comments, questions? You go, sorry.
Oh, sorry, not about that particular thing, but signage. We used to have a big billboard that said what business houses were in Warren.
We hope for the future one day when we get a very large grant for tourism, business and economic development, we will do it again. People have to pay for their signage, but something,
One out the golf club.
yeah. We're hoping for the future, get something like a Murray-Darling Basin Economic Development Program funding to do exactly that all around the Shire, which would be both tourism, economic development and business signage to help everyone. Money.
Any further comments, questions regarding the council committee meeting? Nothing further. Put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillors, how do we feel about moving on, adjourning the meeting and going to Patricia Plunkett's and then coming back to the support of the biggest? Thank you. Councillors, we'll resume the meeting after supporting the Australia's biggest morning tea, Patricia Plunkett's. We thank her for her hospitality and happy to support that fundraiser. Moving on with our agenda, the next minutes to be considered are those of the Warren Local Emergency Management Committee, their meeting. Someone happy to move the minutes of that meeting be accepted, please. Reserved and noted. Thank you, Councillor Whiteley. Second, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Whiteley.
I move the recommendation of minutes for the council's perusal and ask the GM to comment if he has any.
Anything you need to comment on?
Just the LEMO, which is the Divisional Management Services, just setting up the new local emergency management plan and the special CMGs that go with it. We've had a reasonable discussion about passing on the information that came from the Warrenshire Council internal debrief from the floods. So no real comments from the other organisations.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the minutes of the Local Emergency Management Committee's meeting?
My only comment, Mr Mayor, if it's all right, is that the local debrief went very well. There's a massive amount of data that's been put away for it. And it'll be of historic value.
Agreed. Just having that ability to look back and say various river heights mean various things and flows and. My comment, Mr Mayor, is that all those around that table are of a certain age and vintage, if we're not going to be here forever, including staff, as long as that's been put away so that future it might be 20 years that we'll need that again. Yep, absolutely. No, thank you.
In the year in 20 years.
We plan to.
Councillor McCloskey's indicated his availability in the next 20 years for any flood event. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the Local Emergency Management Committee meeting? Nothing further. We'll put that. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to the final report of the committees, that being the Mannix Committee, the minutes of that meeting in Harwood. Someone has to move that those that information be received and noted. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Second. Councillor Kinsey. Councillor Jackson.
So, move that these minutes be accepted and, as before, the general manager will comment on anything particularly wanted to be for.
Just, Mr Mayor, something interesting is on page 4 of the minutes is the Divisional Manager Engineering Services setting up a proper section 138 of the Roads Act consent forms and information for the future. That's really the type of application people use to use our roadway. A small sense, someone who wants to put a hoarding around their building site on our footpath, which is the roadway, or someone who wants to do reconstruction of intersection as part of their development application. They need to put in a section 138 application. someone who wants to move and construct 10 kilometres of dedicated public road, has to put in one section 138 application. Just setting up for the future. Everyone will have to learn how to use it properly, because probably not many of them have been done over the years. Time that. And look, we've got lots of positions that we're advertising and organising.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions, Councillor Boston?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Just a query in terms of all the flood damage and inspections and BEC and whatever, where is that at? Is it all been finalised? Is it in the wind and gone? Are we waiting for anything, or where's that at?
Right, so on page 4, Beck have prepared a draft Form 306, and the documents are undergoing final checks.
So that is the final inspection of everything up till
all of the
up until Christmas time, basically December.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which will incorporate AGRN 987, 1025, 1030 and 1034, minus the 2,337,685 immediate, it's actually reconstruction works that have been approved. So we don't really know that total, but we're expecting in the multi-millions.
And we're still not hearing anything back regarding the 757 and regarding the management of the flood management that our fellows did. Yeah, okay.
We've put again Reconstruction Authority on notice. We had a meeting with them to push State Emergency Service to pay it all.
No, sorry, the funding of work that was done during the emergency situation, the 2 lots of, that's right, not the flood, not the dumping of the rock in the levee, but the workforce actually facilitating the work that needed to be done during flood. So 127 something and 750 something.
174, 750,
right. Yeah,
big money.
Yeah, so it's outstanding. We're just chasing that by SES. Councillor White, I think you had a comment, question.
Just one for the GM, if he wishes to comment, and it doesn't have to. I see that the 5.2, the Office of Local Government Strategic Tasks and stuff. And I also saw his email during the week through the Auditor General going hard at the Office of Local Government. Is that going to affect us there?
What will happen is that the department then will get even harsh on us, because they probably find what the Auditor General was saying is that you're not doing the auditing and checking and telling these councillors to improve themselves as much as you should. What I do know on the other side of the coin, the last couple of years I've been trying the hardest to provide many more guidelines instead of nothing. But yeah, that pretty negative report on OLG.
This, through you, Mr Mayor, this was a repercussion of some Central Coast Shire councillors and others falling over in a big way.
We don't know.
One of the problems is once upon a time it was called the Division of Local, sorry, the Department of Local Government, DLG. Then it became the Division of Local Government, and then it's now the OLG, is Office of Local Government. And the joke in the industry was, is wonder whether we're going to go back to being the DLG, the Desk for Local Government.
Thank you.
Watch this space, see how it transpires. Councillor White, I believe we wait and see. Any further comments, questions? Amendment the minutes of the next meeting. Nothing further, put that all those in favour. Against carried. Moving on to reports of delegates, I've made it on our agenda. The first of those being the annual general meeting of the Outback Arts Incorporated. Councillor Jackson, we're happy to move that. Thank you. Second. Councillor Kinsey, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just the annual general meeting, there was a change of chairperson, otherwise no real changes. Something of note is that due to difficulty in recruiting, the Outback Arts organisation is slightly changing their HR structure, for want of a better word, but within the constraints of existing budgets, so no increase to budgets. And it's also worth noting that they've been very efficient in obtaining funding for arts projects, many of which do impact our Warren Shire and benefit our Warren Shire. And one in particular I wanted to make note of was a museum curators course that Mary Small, who's involved in the museum and art gallery in Warren, went with the executive director of Outback Arts to Sydney to take part in this curating course that's specifically on Aboriginal artefacts. So that's just something that will be a great benefit, I think, to our town and our district to have that kind of knowledge locally. And other than that, everything seems to be going along, and our investment into this organisation, I think, is bearing good fruit.
Thank you. Any further on the delegate report pertaining to the Outback Arts? Nothing further? With that, all those in favour? Against, carried. Second of our delegate meetings pertains to the Castlereagh and Macquarie County Council. Councillor Kinsey, you happy to move that? Second, Councillor Whiteley. Councillor Kinsey.
Yes, Mr Mayor, the meeting went along as normal. It was fairly good. We actually, one of the main parts of the meeting, we decided to get Roy Buckler out, Mr Barwell, and the next meeting, and just see if we can encourage him to convince the authorities to give us some leverage with legislation to make sure that things are happening as far as, in particular, there was one I asked for it to happen, so in particular to cacti. I think that if we get cacti over the bar as far as legislation is concerned, then we could probably attack some of these other weeds in the same way. And I think the emotions on cacti will probably, hopefully, very good things will happen. So, but as far as the other ones are concerned, maybe not. Pretty well, that was the basis, the best part out of the meeting. The finances seem to be going okay, or so we're told. I think the operation that we're doing as far as the killing the prickly pear, and not prickly pear, the other things, Hudson pears. We are attacking it with a boat. It seems to be working, but it only works when it wants to. It's very hit and miss show, but maybe who knows, better than no plan at all. But I think the next meeting is on the 27th, I think. Yeah, 27th of June. Hopefully Roy Butler will be there.
For your information, Councillor Batten raised the issue of things that are happening in the Castlereagh and Macquarie Council with the Minister for Agriculture, Tara Moriarty, at their Alliance of Western Councils meeting, and particularly pertaining to the legislation, potential legislation so that you could actually involve all the landholders who are affected by the pear situation. So it's been raised at the next level, Councillor Kinsey gets the awareness, and certainly with our local member, Roy Butler, and with Laval.
With Roy there, with that meeting?
He was there, and I can't be specific. It was certainly raised with the Ministry for Agriculture. I can't be sure that it was raised when Minister Barwell was in the room as well, because they do tend to come in and not cross over, and so. Sometimes the information, I believe, probably gets to one party, but perhaps not the other, unless it becomes tedious to have the same thing raised again and again and again in the Alliance of Western Councils meeting, because it's just a separate person, different person listening to it. But rest assured, it's on the agenda, Councillor Kinsey, and it makes it pertinent to get Councillor Batten to follow up with both of those people and just say, okay, how are we progressing with this?
Yes. Really impossible if you can't get the landholders to do stuff.
It's not on board. Yeah. And just for my information or information, your general manager for customer inquiry, is still on board, is that?
Yes, yeah, that was discussed. Basically, there was a vote of confidence, you know, like, no fault or vote, but everybody said, well, we're glad that you've got our full attention in a way, rather than sharing it with Bob. And he took the joke on that and said, yes, I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing.
Thank you. That's
I'm happy to
gratifying.
be keeping because there might be a better one out there, but it's certainly not too bad as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Anything further on the minutes of the Council Inquiry County Council meeting? Nothing further, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. There are no policy matters for us to consider. Moving on to the reports of the General Manager, the first of those being the outstanding reports checklist, very short list. Someone happy to move that? Yeah, Councillor Whiteley, and then Councillor Jackson. Thank you, Councillor Whiteley.
I had to jump the queue to put my hand up there. Yeah, I formally move the outstanding reports checklist with the GM and ask him to comment. Obviously, a lot of these discussions will, subjects will be discussed already and in our post-council meeting, but if he's got any comments, he can lead us all through it.
Just quickly, Mr Mayor, going through to only the ones that have worked out first, so slightly bottom of page 2, proposed sale of Warren Airport land is complete, money in the bank. Going then to bottom of page 5, the economic development strategic plan, strategy and action plan is to this meeting dusted. Going then to page 11, the majority of them being to media policies. We didn't receive any adverse submissions. It's been adopted as on the website and distributed to everyone. Secondly, employment policy has been distributed to everyone. It was actually written to all the council staff to arrange advice before the 30th of June this year to get on the secondary employment register. The local roads and community infrastructure program phase 3 extension and phase 4 further reports being done to this meeting with a slight change that's happened. Local roads congress has been organised. The allocation of the land allocation advice has been provided to RFS. Is now entirely up to them to organise the subdivision and development application to council. At the bottom of page 11 is the draft operational plan has been advertised and appropriate reporting will be done by the Divisional Manager of Finance Administration and myself to the June council meeting. Top of page 12, draft estimates the same. Bank account signatories have been organised. The write-off of those rates has been organised. And then moving to page 19, middle of page 19, the gas supply renewal and all sorts of things has been done as much as it can. And at the top of page 21 is management and operation Manfoster Quarry is progressing. The first two have been arranged. It's the number 3 onwards that it's the final negotiations still to come. And that's it.
So everyone's happy that those asterisk items actually be taken off the action checklist now?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Anything further on item 1 of the General Manager's report and the action checklist? Outstanding report. Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 2, councillors, as is customary. recognition of Warren being a healthy town and to keep awareness of a healthy lifestyle, council will be standing while doing the bottom 2 of the general manager's report. Someone to move the item 2 of the general manager's report. Councillor Kinsey, happy to move. Second, Councillor Derrick. Councillor Kinsey.
Yes, Mr Mayor, the council may have a meeting at Canal on the 27th of June.
Upcoming meeting. Thank you. Anything further, comments, questions regarding the meetings probably have been held, to be held? The general manager and I will be attending country mayors tomorrow morning in the state parliament. It's not on that list, but just for your awareness. The other one I draw your attention to the matters of local government annual conference. I believe that's been held at Rose Hill. Yeah. What I would be indicating is that accommodation last time when it was held at Rose Hill was a problem. From what you were organised, thank you.
That's because the
No,
system is organised.
That's good, thank you. That's good because it was potentially challenging.
There's a chance the report will be going to the general meeting to organise who's going.
Yeah, no, just the accommodation part of it was potentially, she's ahead of us. Thank you, Jody. Well done. Anything further on item 2 of the general manager's report? Nothing further. Put that, all those in favour? Please, Gary, thank you. Item 3, general manager's report, work progress report pertaining to infrastructure projects. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Whiteley's happy to move. Second, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Whiteley.
Again, a lot of these have been commented on earlier and will be in the post meeting. I invite the general manager to comment anything he wishes to bring up there.
Yeah, we're just making sure that to the best of our ability, we're staying within budget. One of the good things of this report is some form of budget control by everyone. I mean, we're trying our hardest with as much commitment costing as possible.
I think we'll come when we come to the budget review. Maybe my administration will speak to, I think the difficulty that the general manager is looking to is just being very clear about what funding has been allocated to a particular project in lots of intersection of various grants, and the approach will be taken for this and the approach will be taken for that. The bottom line is that we're within the budgets for all those areas that will come to that in the budget review process. Is there anything further in item 3? Sorry, Councillor Watkins.
Just in light of what is happening at the airport in terms of drain, would it be prudent to take the sentence out further to further drainage work proposed in White's property may improve the drainage site at the airport, given that's no longer an option?
Oh, it will get adjusted. What page is that on?
Page 29, about the middle.
Yeah, that's what it's saying. Scope revisiting is required and works to be scheduled for later in 23. That's what it's saying, is that we're just trying to do some history there. That's all. We try to reduce it down as much as possible as things change.
No, thank you. Noted, Airport Committee. Anything further on infrastructure, the works progress report, infrastructure projects? Which are
We're getting lots of positive comments coming out of Carter Road. That's something important. Lovely photos. More coming. And look, very soon the town services managers crews will start to take over maintenance to get it up, make sure it's organised to be up to scratch. You want to comment anymore?
No, at this stage, no, I think we'll be in the next couple of weeks, as the general manager said, we'll start to do the mowing of it to get the turf growing properly.
Yeah, no, established, yeah. Just in light of that too, you said, when they laid the turf, did they lay that with a machine?
I believe so. They were very large.
Yes. So they rolled it out somehow in front, given the, you look at the width of the thing, which is.
Oh, it was a big roll.
Yeah.
No, it was a big roll that size. Yeah, it was a special turf laying machine.
Yeah.
Taking such heavy stuff. Photograph might show it, Mr. Mayor.
General Manager, want to forward us a photograph, Councillor McCloskey? Here we go.
Mr. Mayor, I will, but see the large rolls, they're not the small little things they do on and it's a fairly big tractor. It's got special rolling ability.
Yeah, what went down in a pretty short time.
Yeah, no, I drove past it a couple of times, and maybe one night they were down there, yes, after dark with the lights on.
No, it's good. Yeah, good result if we can pick the water up through it now and keep it really, well, establish it so it's in really good order. Will save us a lot of drama.
So, again, in light of that, the cricket pitch in the middle of the old Carter Oval, how's that progressing?
It's coming along well as well. That's been looked after by Greens, who have laid it down several times and it's been put down, so they're managing that, and it's coming along.
So at some stage down the track, they'll hand that over to council?
Yes.
I just report on that one. It looks a bit big turf wicket area. It seems sizable. That would all. It looks bigger than say certainly longer than Victoria, and to my eye it was good wider, no more than 2, is it? Anyway, that is not. No, it's well done. It doesn't. It's a positive comment, not a negative. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the works progress report, infrastructure projects? Nothing further. We'll put that. All those in favour? Yes. Carried. Moving on to local roads and community infrastructure program, phase 4, and the phase 3 extension. Well, phase 4 was the one that was amended, wasn't it? So,
Phase 3 extension out the window and then over 4A and 4B.
Yeah. Councillor, we considered this at our last meeting, and then it's come to light that we're a certain amount of funding short. You'll see the items that have been taken out so that we stay within our budget. So what I'm looking for, we haven't got a mover and second, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for item 4 pertaining to local roads community infrastructure funding, and the significant number of smaller projects we aim to undertake within that funding. That Councillor Derrick's happy to move it, thank you. Second, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we probably do need some discussion on this, but obviously a lot of thought has gone into how to whittle this down to what we have here in the recommendation. Thank you.
You go, yeah.
I went a month early with the advice that we actually had 2 by $655,258. So what really happened was one of them was, let's call it 4A, 3A, phase 3 extension became 4A, it's 655,258, which is what we had, but the little bit more became a little bit like about 2/3 of what we were told. So we're down to $1,033,225 instead of 1.31518 or something like that. So we've actually had to try to work out what projects to reduce by about 277,000. And reduce with most of those projects probably for the future. And most of the reason why, and have a look at page 53, is to try to justify it. I'll let the town services manager help me with the first one about the irrigation control system upgrades, but the solar panel battery installation. Sure, for the future, but we need to organise ourselves, and we're probably going to have all of that later in the 2-year program anyway, because we've got a lot of work to do with places like ChargeWorks to prepare, understand business case, appropriate locations, on and on. Same with the solar panel installation. Shogun Rascals Complex, it is the least justifiable because the amount of true electricity used out there, and that's why it's off the books. And the other one, which is the pool, is on the books still. Now, and talking to the Parks and Gardens crew about the irrigation control system upgrades, they actually preferred that a priority would be is, let's do the back of the library that we've never ever had an irrigation system on, so we don't need to worry about it. Other people have watered it for us over the years, and they're no longer with us, and it's just automatically been pushed, and the only thing we need to come along is to mow the place and tidy it up. Some of it gets used as part of the library extension, but the back part's not going to be used for some time, and probably that's where other parts of the library services will happen, laying on the grass. It's not nicely mowed there anyway. But the controller system, you're probably working on maintenance work to tidy things up, and I'll let you try to explain those.
It was a nice to have, not necessarily a must have. We've brought all of the controllables in line with the new systems that are being installed out at Carter Oval, so that it was all app-based control. And having been shown very briefly how that all works, it's very simple to operate on the app. Actually, it appears to be a little bit simpler to operate on the app than it does to actually physically stand there in front of it. So we'll get to that point at some point down the track, but when we're faced with the reality of not having enough fund, that was an easy one to drop off at this stage.
Thank you. Councillors, I guess the question is, for us, this report, are those the items which we choose to drop off, or should we be considering something else? That I mean, I think we just need to get it pretty right within the funding model that we've got. Councillor White, you've got a comment?
My personal comment is that we've dropped off the right one. I'm open to comment, but if that's what you need, we had to cut our cloth to suit, and I think the decisions that have been made here are appropriate.
Thank you.
Yeah, 3 years ago, I don't disagree in terms of trying to make up the 277. You go for some big ticket items that are not necessarily essential and you can do without, and get the result with minimal loss of projects. Or you can go through it and cull out 10 and keep some of the bigger ones. So I think this is a more realistic and efficient way of doing it, and still keep some integrity in the program and cover more bases. Get the bang for your buck in terms of doing more.
Yes. I mean, quite frankly, we won't miss it if it's not solar panels.
That's right.
Showground racecourse, exactly. But yeah, I'd love to see bitumen reseal over it. Victoria Oval, for instance, or wherever the walkways start, just to save that maintenance type issue. So yeah, I entirely concur with the conclusion that's been reached here in the recommendation. That's an efficient way of coming to a sensible conclusion.
Just another thing, me. In the 4th paragraph from the bottom, I think that should read battery, not batter.
Yeah. What page?
53.
If I may make a comment with regards to the 3 walkways outside of the levy, we do also have additional grant funding applications under the flood restoration plan to re-sheet those. So there is a chance that some of that is funded. We'll be able to come back to some of these other projects afterwards.
Councillor White.
My only other comment, re that, is that, we've lost upwards of 20% of the figure. We need to concentrate on efficiencies so that we can gain some of that back in operational efficiency. In the budgets of what we're going to do.
Make sure that we pick efficient contractors, most of them are contract.
So we don't have to do it again.
Okay. Any further comments, questions regarding item 4 of the General Manager's report? Central Local Roads Community Infrastructure funding, phase 4, 4A and 4B. Nothing further to put that? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5 is Go Ventures, councillors and designated persons. So I'm happy to move the recommendation there that have been received. Councillor Derrick, sorry, Councillor McCloskey. Councillor Derrick.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Fairly straightforward. Happy to move the recommendation.
Yeah, it's got them over there.
And it's been tabled.
2 staff members.
Nothing further on item 5. With that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 6 of the General Manager's report pertaining to the determination by the Local Government Remuneration Tribunal. Someone happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Kinsey's happy to move, second Councillor Jackson. Councillor Kinsey.
Let's move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Within the draft estimate.
Thank you. Any comments, questions regarding item 6, the Local Government Remuneration Tribunal finding? Nothing further, put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the reports of Division Owner and Finance Administration, the first of those being the reconciliation certificate. Someone happy to move the reconciliation certificate? Councillor Whiteley, happy to move. Second. Councillor Kinsey, Councillor Whiteley.
I commend it and refer to Administration and Finance Director to comment if we wish.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I can certainly field any questions, but you'll notice this report is, like you said, it's very straightforward. There was one term deposit that matured that was not reinvested. However, I think that will be reported in the next monthly period. Of course, we know that this is at the end of April, so just to come out there. All I can sort of inform council at this stage.
Thank you. Any questions regarding item 1, Division Manager Finance Administration report?
Councillor, I did also to ask a question. What you were just referring to there, is that the one that shows the maturity date of the 8th of May, given that's 3 weeks ago?
Yes. Yep. So
it hasn't, given this end, before or after, there is a new maturity date other than the 8th of May.
certainly, so this is reported to you guys in May, but relates to the end of April.
Yep.
That changes to
We just have to continue to see it is 4.35%.
just one other change. You'll see it further in the quarterly budget review statement, but General Manager was reminding me about interest rates. There's obviously been an increase in interest rates. So more income generated through that, which is reflected in the budget review.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 1? With that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 2, Division Manager Finance Administration report pertaining to statement of rates and annual charges. Someone happy to move that? Councillor McCloskey, happy to move it?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Thank you. Councillor Derrick, second. Councillor McCloskey.
No comment? Pretty straightforward.
If I may.
Certainly.
Through the chair, just one there. At the bottom of the table, for the statement of rates and annual charges as of the 12th of May. And a year-on-year comparison, so from May to May. The percentage indicated of the collection figure, it's noticeably higher than the same point in the prior year. So, seems like ratepayers are being quite generous in paying time and looking into the end of the financial year.
And so there'll be, next race installment is due in the next, end of this month, is it not?
End of this month.
End of this month, yeah, so that should even bump up a little bit. Yep. Thank you. Any further comments, questions on item 2, the Division Manager Finance Administration report? Standard rates and annual charges. Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Yes. Carried. Item 3, Report Program Report, Finance Administration area, their projects. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Whiteley, happy to move. Councillor Derrick, second. Thank you. Councillor Whiteley.
Yeah, I mean, just council and, as before, any comments, from our divisional manager?
See, both those projects are still ongoing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the joint, the double tender gets advertised in the next couple of weeks, it probably won't be reporting to a record until July council meeting. There'll still be 2 parts, but hoping someone will come along, usually both parts, the entrance and the outdoor area.
Further comments, questions regarding the works progress report? And the new promoted Division Manager of Finance Administration, nothing further. With that, all those in favour? Thanks, carried. Item 4, the librarian's report on the Warrantai Library operations. Someone had to move that report to be accepted. Thank you, Councillor Derrick. Second, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's obviously a lot in this report, but yes, I think some of the events that have already been held this year have certainly been amazing, and particularly the Paint the Town Red event yesterday, which was attended by the schools and the preschool over at the sporting complex. So I know my girls were extremely excited and still buzzing at the end of the day after that. And obviously it was amazing to see so many businesses supporting with the streamers and balloons out. And yes, there's always great things happening at the library and a lot more to look forward to for the remainder of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the librarian's report? No. It's a valuable part of what we do, and good to see it supported. Good to see that they're so proactive in making what once would have been a dreary place, a library now something very, very different.
Following 5 R's. Roads, drainage, rubbish, reading, and the river.
Wow, when did you come up with this?
Because I realised we used to be the 4 R's.
Yeah.
River.
Yeah.
But we've kind of looked after libraries since about 1939, and I think it's probably the best done by local government.
Thank you. There being nothing further on the librarian's report, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5 of the Division Manager Finance Administration report pertains to the March 23 quarterly budget review. I know we've all got that on our iPads. It's not on the paper form in front of us, is it? No. They are. Well, they're hard to read on an iPad. So I'm looking for someone to move and second, and then we might defer to the Manager Finance Administration just to go through the line items that he sees our attention being to be drawn to, and there are some bigger notes in his report. But Councillor Whiteley, can you do that? Second, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Whiteley, you.
Yeah, as you stated, yeah, I defer to the GM or the divisional manager for any outstanding actuals different to the budget and any other comments.
I thank the Division Manager Finance Administration and the pressure of the first month, having a good go at doing a quarterly review. Because we're watching our budgets within reason, particularly all those works progress reports of all the 5 areas, we're trying our hardest to make sure that there actually is an understanding of budget control, and what I would hope will happen for future ones forever is that the managers responsible for their budgets are liaising much more with the Divisional Manager of Finance Administration, which forces them to have an understanding completely of their budgets, including the income coming into their area. It's not just expenditure. It needs to be understanding of income.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Mayor, General Manager. Following that, I think it's hugely important as well. You see a key part of the nature of the business is we've got various arms or branches, if you like, subject matter experts or key staff that deliver those areas and manage them. They need to be, not that they aren't exactly, but whatever help and offering we can give them to better manage that space, particularly from a financial perspective, is a benefit across the board. So I agree, we should be looking into the future very much to kind of get that consistency and alignment across the board, have everybody on the same page. So I think we can do that pretty easy. And whether it's staff training or otherwise, we'll get there. And we have a few good systems in place and structure to accommodate it. So looking forward to that. As the General Manager has mentioned, me being so new here, going through this budget review process was time critical, and there were some things that probably I just wasn't aware of in the nature of the business and how it's progressed to here, whether that's operationally or particularly the capital projects. So from my perspective, financially speaking, I think it's a pretty good status as at the end of March. It's reflected in the statement, the responsible accounting officer statement being a satisfactory result for council at that point. So I'm happy to go through the nature of the changes reflected in the report.
Yeah, if you just go through those, so that everyone's got, I think you've alluded, in your report, you've alluded to the bigger income expenditure items that have changed a little and the capital items that have changed a little, or materially, as we call them. Sorry, and that understated it. One of you might just
Certainly.
summarise those bigger ones, and then any other ones that you believe that we should be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, you note item 5 basically give really brief snapshots of the relevant budget variations from the operational perspective, first of all. So just on that, I can offer more detail, but I tend to find it's better just to sort of dot point it and then go through it in the report further on. On that note, the bigger changes we have, as I mentioned prior, I think it's been fairly conservative in terms of the income received by way of interest on investments. So making an adjustment there to increase that income by 100,000, it may kind of be a little bit more than the revised budget of 230,000, and obviously it'll be pretty close, I think. So that's good to recognise that. From an operational perspective, there were some smaller kind of grant monies anticipated to be received that were not received, so I've removed those. One item was just around vacation care particularly. I actually think that service is no longer being undertaken. So what's reflected in the overall summary in that sense by department activity or function, that's the net result of all of these changes. So there was a large grant for the water fund, which was a drought program. It was anticipated to be received 468,000, that was removed. And
consequent capital works not being undertaken either.
Exactly, yes, correct. So the other adjustments in the water funds, which was the larger share of this budget review process, were items the council had already deliberated on resolutions relating to those. That was done in the previous month. That was to do with some supply pump purchases, the telemetry upgrade, and the old Nevertide Hall.
All the boards, all the boards,
Wasn't it?
and telemetry system.
Yeah, sure.
And there was another sewer fund item, capital grant that was anticipated, but was not going to be received, so it was taken out as well. And that is, according to my information, the extent of the budget movements. There were a few items that I was going to investigate further in relation to, say, some sort of budget versus actual comparative. If you went line by line, you'd notice that, say, workshop expenses were over budget. I think there's been a little bit of work there that's possibly costing to the wrong area. That can be spread over that item. So overall, the capture of, say, workshop expenses is on par. But when you look line by line, one will be up, one will be down. That's
Fleet running, fleet running and operation. Plus income's good. Income's good, I mean, yeah.
So there were a few other things from an accounting perspective with debtor accounts would have been removed. And it's a year-on-year comparative, so we raised an invoice in the last financial year, which was reversed in this one. So it actually indicates a book figure, which is a negative impact on the income when you compare the budget versus actual. So instead of being a credit, as in money coming into council, it shows as a debit value against the income. So just some, minor sort of tidy up in that sense, I'll say. Certainly nothing of significance cash-wise or negative impact on the council at all. But if you were to go through the report with a fine-tooth comb, I'm sure you'd come to that conclusion yourself. And notice those particularly. The only other item I had was related to, I'll call this a big bucket of funds relating to the enhancing equestrian horse event. Where there is a overspend indicated in that particular budget line item. However, upon review and catching up, coming up to speed on that particular project, following the general manager's perspective with a number of different grant monies coming in, a large number of different projects forming part of that. It still requires a little bit further information, but we basically held a high degree of confidence that we are within budget in that sense. And again, coming down to the bottom line of that particular area, it certainly reflects that we are well and truly in a safe situation at this point. So on that note, while it's noteworthy, I don't think there's any significant sort of concern from what I established. So the manager may or may not wish to comment further, but
That's why I like those works progress reports, because it's constantly getting on it. And for 2 years, we have tried our hardest to actually understand the grants.
a lot of the complication is our accounting system at times is not just here, it's everywhere. So it needs to make sense for council and its operations and how you deliver things out the door, what you need to capture for yourself, which doesn't always align with how you need to report it back to the funding bodies. So they're kind of not lining up. And of course, the budgets are set on the basis of what they say we can do. So it is a bit of a complicated situation, but as I said, it's very much being monitored correctly, reported back, and looks okay from my perspective. So.
Thank you.
Field any questions?
I think I agree entirely with you. It becomes difficult when we have these buckets of money come in and then they're dispersed in various ways, and then how they're then acquitted back to the various grant people. It is a difficult situation. So all of our staff need to be quite aware, don't they, of what they're coding something to, so that it just makes life as easy as is possible, so that you've got a handle on it.
This particular array of grant funds has gone over successive years as well, which also makes it a bit more difficult to kind of keep track of. That's fair to say, but again, and making more sense of it, apologies, I should have started with this, but the particular area is the recreation capital expenses area, of which you will notice that item, the equestrian, just lost it, apologies. The equestrian enhancement. So at the total for that particular area, you'll see just as a at the top, we've got a $3.8 million budget, and the committals and actuals $2.5 million. So I'm sure we're within the overall scope of that budgeted area.
Thank you. A complicated little area, but that one made more complicated by whatever number of different user groups and then various grants coming in pertaining to various parts of those user groups. It's not the easiest situation to come through. But having said all that, we'd rather have the money than not, so we'll work out how to account for it. And to your credit, Bradley and Darren and Jill in between, pivot. As long as that bottom line stays in the black, we're happy. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 5? Committee Manager Finance Administration Report, the quarterly budget review. Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to reports for Division Manager Engineering Services. First of those being the Works Progress Report pertaining to roads. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Whiteley. Thank you. Councillor McCloskey. Councillor Whiteley.
Yeah, I commend the Divisional Manager's report to you. We talked about a lot of this during the report on the roads committee meeting. Any comments from councillors or GM? It is awesome.
We've got a fair amount of those operational positions out there advertised open-ended, trying to find people who are suitable and more people, look, we haven't been able to quite get the 5th crew out completely yet, and that'll start to provide a fair amount of work eventually, extra work. Just making sure that everyone knows all the budgets to date. Put the latest one in the bottom of page 2, $2,337,685 for that AGRN immediate reconstruction works. That next couple of weeks will be, well, it started already because I've just grader crew number 2 would have moved and would be on the heavy patching on 347. Eventually, the crew at Barama will move to Regional Road 202, all the heavy patches and flood damage there, and then that same crew will probably work all the way around Dora Road, bit of Dora Road, Wombiana Road, those areas, and then crew that's on 347, and this is subject to Sylvester, Stephen Glenn and the roads overseer finalising it Terence Hume will go to do all the big floodway work, higher up, on 333. So there's lots of work coming. We also need those manager positions filled to make sure it gets done organised and well. Hoping this weekend, a very large dozer will go into Toucan, start pushing up and mixing up Toucan material up, but they're just doing some test holes to make sure they know exactly the material and where it is in the next section, and that's ready for 202.
So, to interrupt, the Shire won all the prizes. Noel Kinsey,
There you go.
There you go.
he won the
I will give you a big.
Oh, thank you, I think it's another one.
and Norton Cleveland won the Lucky Dog prize, a $30 voucher from Greenlands.
And thank you to promote recording all the way here. Thank you for you putting on the morning too, the this morning too. It's so important.
Patty and Mary Ann are the most, but okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
We're never going to put them back.
Yeah, you could have been with it, no.
202, flood damage, regional road, regional repair program.
What's my name?
Push the red button on the right there. Sarah was sorted for you know.
And 7515, and eventually, Nevertire Bow, pretty big push up there.
The material for the Nevertire Bogan Road sourced from
Probably Toucan.
probably two.
Well, it's only 8 kilometres, 20 kilometres, and 15 kilometres. Best material for it is nothing out there. Do that stabilisation appropriate and good 80 CBR minimum.
You might find there's still a stockpile in Harvey if it belongs to council.
Sorry, just Councillor Nikolsky.
Yeah, just another, given in this report, we've quantified the actual amount of work that some of the crews are doing. Is it possible to quantify the grading in kilometres, just opposed to just grading? Just to give an indicative indication of what they're achieving, be it in a week or the days between the start and finish?
I think there was a time Councillor Nikolsky
Used
said
to.
that.
You used to put it on the timesheets, and that's how yeah. Whether that's still the case here.
Sorry, while you've got the check. Anything else?
No.
Councillor Whiteley, I think that's on.
I just want to finish this with an anecdote. The guys are doing a good job. Where I see them working and what they're doing, and some of the, for example, the Old Warren Road material that's been put down. I see our road train working efficiently. I compliment those that are supervising and the staff, and also compliment the person who head of it, Stephen Payne.
It's a good way.
Any further comments, questions regarding item 1, Division Manager Engineering Services report, Manager Roads? Nothing further with that?
Mayor, just quickly, it's only 3 months, hopefully that's helped us get on track.
Giving a holiday and then inviting back.
And that's exactly what you're doing. And we're hoping that we actually eventually find, with that advertising period for the roads infrastructure management, find someone suitable. We are interviewing other people, but they're just, for that really important, more senior role, which is equivalent almost like to the operations manager role. So important, it's just never find someone good.
Yep. In private business now, it is dog eat dog. You've got to go and find your man and get him. Just put a generic ad out, not worth.
Taken on board. Thank you. Moving on, just to keep us in order, we'll move on to item 2, user management and team service report pertaining to town services. Someone happy to move that report? Councillor McCloskey, happy to move?
I'll move it too. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Kinsey. Councillor McCloskey.
Nothing to speak of, but if someone that's responsible for these particular areas wants to comment in terms of where things are, please feel free.
Probably the town services manager. Is there anything
At the moment, there's nothing that jumps out that's major concern.
or concern? Yeah. Thank you.
That's it, so 3 years.
It's been tapped. Thank you. Okay.
It's in the report.
Yeah, but just a quick comment there.
There's there's a program called the leak reduction program for our water main system. We applied end of May with a large questionnaire to see where we were as far as what we do, how we do things. I was interviewed by a consultant that's engaged by the Department of Primary Industry and Environment to verify some of that information and then they came up with a proposal that they will submit to DPE to suggest us in being involved. It will involve installation of 5 pressure loggers, data loggers around the network that can be relocated and moved around so we can keep an eye on what's going on in the network as far as water pressure. The installation of flow meters on the outlets of all of our reservoirs so that we can start to report losses, and supply of electronic listening devices to try to actively search for water leaks instead of, at the moment, predominantly we're reactive, instead of being proactive. So with some of this installation of these equipments, we should be able to try and get in front of it, and then from that information develop a main replacement program and upgrade program. It also includes a little bit of consultant work at the end of the 12-month period to walk us through the data that's collected from the flow meters and all the data loggers to tell us basically what it means and how we can use that information better. So maximum funding is $150,000. We are 10% contribution, so a $15,000 contribution towards that. We should know sometime in June whether or not we've been accepted, and the fund indeed would be signed, and then money would be available in July.
So we will do that with both the bore and the river systems, correct?
And it's never tire and collar
as well.
Yeah. So the flow meters will go on to all of our reservoirs.
Good. Okay. Councillor Kinsey.
Yeah, just noticed here, Mr. Mayor, that we're clean one bore at Devatire and refurbish the old one. How are we getting on with that?
Mr. Chair, we haven't. They came out and they measured the old bore to ascertain whether the original proposal was going to be successful. They've had to change the casing materials, the new casing material they're going to use on the old bore at Nevertime. Just waiting on that material to be delivered or supplied, and then they'll come out, do the refurbish the old bore, and then they'll move to cleaning the new bore once the old one's been established. Puts us much closer, much further in the winter, so it won't impact so much with the old bore being a much lesser flow rate to the new bore.
Whilst we're in the water space, in the town services space, just to let you know, the Alliance of Western Councils is supporting a proposal to establish through the Lower Water Utility Alliance a training school, potentially in training for water and sewage operators. And so the Balmoral Group will put together a business case to take to state government to have that established. And Graham, you might be more up to speed if you want to comment on that one.
So as through you, Mr. Mayor, as was just said, the proposal is to try and have a centralised location where councils, particularly with the Arana Water Utility Alliance, can send people where they bring in trainers, specialised trainers to us rather than having to send our staff, into the city or over to the coast to do the training. So through the scales of economy, having multiple councils being able to send people in, it will certainly help us get those skills and train our people. So it's an issue, there's very few registered training authorities that conduct this type of training in New South Wales. And it's been very difficult to try and get that accreditation for certain people. So it should make a big difference once we can get it in place.
Thank you. This is, at the moment, it's in the very early stages, Councillor Kinsey, so if what the Alliance of Western Councils have backed the request of the local Macquarie, the Lowell Macquarie Water Utilities Alliance, the Balmoral Group are having to put together a business case, as is always, as is the case when you're seeking from state government funding to do this. So that's what's being supported at the minute, but with unanimous support that should move ahead. So it's not going to be the quickest process in the world, I believe, Councillor Kinsey, but the intentions are there to see it through and get it done. Water issues and staff training for those positions is difficult enough. So if we can make it easier and have a broad scope, and I guess the potential is that it becomes actually a profitable business that training schools will run. There's a free charge for external people to come in, and it might be something. Well, it will be something that's valuable to our communities, no matter what. But it might even be more valuable in that sense. Any further comments, questions regarding item 2 of the Division Manager Finance Engineering Services report? To the town services. We'll put that all those in favour. Yes, carried. Item 3, works budget report pertaining to the fleet in the workshop. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Derrick, you happy to move? Second. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No comments. Happy to move recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Costa.
Yes, one question on it. We sold a vehicle at Pickett's Dubbo lately. We had a windscreen fitted at O'Brien's. It couldn't have been done locally.
We've been having the same things to O'Brien. If it's an insurance job, it's definitely O'Brien.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
I've only considered that we couldn't get a car to Dubbo a month ago, and we have. But that means there's a chance that it was an insurance job, and O'Brien's is what these people want us to do.
Yeah.
So some of the time we try to use, not all the time.
If I may add to that, so through our insurances, we get one free windscreen a year per vehicle. So the insurance company has us use this organisation. Jason has tried to get it done locally through the insurance, but the insurance company won't.
Just in light of that, I know the vehicle had to go to Dubbo. Is there an option for the, if it is an insurance job and the vehicle wasn't going to Dubbo, is there an option for them to come to us as opposed to us going to them? And the reason I ask that, I speak from experience.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It doesn't appear that way. Again, Jason has tried to utilise different methods to have windscreens repaired. At the moment, it appears as though they're happy. The insurance company they're happy for us to be taking it down rather than sending someone out here to do it.
Thank you. Gary, Jeremy, Jason, I think a little bit of positive news is that just in the pertains to fleet workshop, etc.
So don't forget there's costs that come off, but For plant 31 UD and plant 165, we got 22,000 from Bell Trail.
Roughly
Around
100.
65 and 10. So good positive news. I mean, there's costs that come off, but I'm pleased about that. And that truck's and trailer truck particularly is no longer our problem.
And sold where and how?
Bigger.
So that's,
Make sure they're tidied up within reason.
so a little bit in front of budget, which is always nice, and yeah, that's good.
Helps the ones that aren't nice.
That's sorry.
Helps the ones that aren't nice.
Yeah,
And it gives you some,
yeah, that's good. On budget, better than budget, that's always great fun.
Sure, the staff celebrating that UD.
they would love us to find a good second-hand unit to be just extra, and we will keep an eye out to have an interesting report for the future plan committee if we ever see anything of interest. But a good quality truck and trailer.
Again, through Mr. Mayor, of similar ilk in terms of configuration.
Yeah. Maybe super dog.
Yeah, but you split them.
Not a
Just makes it that more versatile with a smaller truck at times.
Plant 107 is not strong enough to do like that. 165 was a reasonable condition. The UD was no good at all. But the 107, which is going to be eventually the water plant, is just not strong enough to be able to pull it off the dome. So that's why both of them went.
Good news on the plan front, that's good. Any further comments or questions regarding the works progress report pertaining to the fleet? Workshop? Nothing further, put that all those in favour. Against carried. Moving on to item 4. To do with procurement and the preferred supplier status for provision of small vehicles. Someone happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Jackson's happy to move that. Second, Councillor Jackson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I move that as I recommended. It seems reasonably straightforward, and if there's anyone in the know with further comments that they'd like to make.
Just prefer new vehicles to get to us quicker than they are. It's happening all around the world. Every type of vehicle is a problem. Light trucks and.
Thank you. Are there any further comments, questions regarding the preferred supplier, small vehicles? Nothing further. We'll put that all those in favour. Against carried. Moving on to the item 5, the Government New South Wales Water Conference, the date of which is scratching. 26. So a month away. Councillor Derrick, you're happy to move the recommendation is one, thank you, Councillor McCloskey. One interested councillor with the town services manager, or is nominated, held in parks. So probably it would be excellent to have one councillor attend along with the town services manager.
Is there anybody in the room, Mr. Mayor, who's interested in going? And available and interested in going? Who's on your committee? Councillor Higgins?
Councillor Higgins, it's online.
Yeah.
Councillor Gale, you board committee as well?
Councillor Drews is on.
Councillor Bruce?
Councillor Drews, are you on the Water and Sewer Committee?
No, you're my waste. Councillor Bruce, particularly. Yes, Councillor Higgins.
Well, the item.
Hey, Councillor, Councillor Jackson, you on? No, okay, right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be someone on the water and sewer committee. I think that it would be beneficial for someone to be there.
We'll nominate Ligo.
Given the circumstances of the week, I'd go, but I can't.
Yes.
If we change it slightly, and say, with expressions of interest being obtained to find the available counsellor. Is that okay?
That work.
You can't accommodate him, but you don't know what he's got on that week, so.
Yeah.
You know, just.
Right at the end, I thought, so approve,
Just add a sentence at the end.
with an expression of interest, being arranged to obtain the available and interested counsellor. To obtain the available and interested counsellor. And expression of interest.
Just going back there. Just change the to and available and obtain, obtain and available and interested counsellor. Councillor, we happy, sorry, I think we moved that.
Darren McCloskey.
Darren McCloskey, Councillor Darren McCloskey, happy with that? Any further, Councillor Kinsey, yes?
Yeah, I've already booked in for 27th of June, and yeah, so for another meeting somewhere else, so.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
I'm just trying to get out of the council, to understand.
That was very quick, Councillor Kinsey, to come back.
Look,
I gotta be
Councillor
up
McCloskey,
there.
very quick, it's, no.
Councillor Higgins will talk to him.
I gotta be to handle that. Councillor.
We'll start with the Wood
Security Committee councils. Thank you. I'm mindful of the time. Is there any further comments and questions regarding the local government New South Wales Water Conference to be held 26, 27, 28 of next month? I'm pleased that we're attending. That's a very good thing. One of these things you come away having learned nothing, and I think maybe some associations with various people who you can call in the future. So that's good. I think I think the valuable part of it in many ways. Thank you. No further comments, questions? We'll put that all those in favour, against, carry. Might, you have to be able to race through these. You think, yep. Reports to the Health Manager Health and Development application approvals, there are none. We don't need that. I'll move it. We have to move it. So, Councillor Derrick, Councillor Jackson, thank you. No discussion, I would think. Thank you. We'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2 of the Manager Development Health and Development Services. Works progress report regarding a couple of items there. Someone happy to move the recommendation?
I think that was Drews. Councillor Drews, can you move that? I saw that. Yes, you moved it.
And second, Councillor Derrick.
And the main reason why, Mr Mayor, is that we're still waiting on MLB Concrete to start some work. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So Councillor Drews.
Can you look at this? Yeah, absolutely. And but of course we're going to cover that later, so that's okay. That's about it. You know, nothing further on item 2. Works progress report. Manager of Health and Development.
I just wanted to ask a real quick question about the library defibrillators on back order. Is there a lot of problems getting defibrillators? I think that would be a location where there would be a lot of potential clients. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's actually a reasoning behind it, is that we'd like to keep all our defibs the same model and make, so that when we purchase resupplies of pads and the like, of the perishables, I suppose you'd call it. But yeah, that we only do the one order with the one supplier rather than having bits and pieces of different models and makes and things.
Yep.
So that's the reasoning behind it.
And sorry, I think Councillor Jackson's going to say, that's a clarification.
Through Mr. I just was wondering about the timeframes for this kind of thing. Is it open-ended, we don't know when we'll get it, or have they said you'll get it?
I'd have to take that on notice and get back to you, yeah. Yep.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions regarding the works progress report? Major health development. Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 3. Pertaining to UMR Waste Depot and its opening hours. Someone who do that, Councillor Derek, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Derek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's consistent with previous years. I'd like to go into chat more.
Thank you. Yes, it seems to have worked in the past, so no reason why it shouldn't continue and people get used to when the actual opening hours are on, well, the opening days pertaining to the public holidays and the like. Any further comment, Councillor Kinsey?
Yeah, probably be the King's birthday now, not Queen.
Could well be, Councillor Kinsey. Certainly have that amended, Councillor Kinsey. Any further comments, questions regarding item 3, and health development services report? Any further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. There are no notice of motion or questions with notice. I don't believe I've been alerted to any matters of urgency. Confidential matters, we will move. So you turn off the camera.
After those 2 minutes.
So we need a resolution from Police Council before. Need a resolution to proceed into the committee of the whole to consider the matters listed on the general manager's report and any other matters to be carry this meeting. And then the resolution to include the press and public in the committee of the whole Police Council for the reasons stated in the motion referrals. So someone having to move both those. Thank you, Councillor Kinsey. Second. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Agreement to put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Councillor Druce, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
So, Mr. Mayor, the Committee of the Whole Post Council resolved in relation to the Warren Airport projects to put no tender to be accepted at the present time, and to the staff and the airport committee work together on providing amended things for the design for the terminal building, and associated stormwater drainage works and associated work for the terminal building, to come within a more reasonable budget for the project. And number 2 was the provision of Richmond spray seal. And where council accepted the analysis for contract T062324 OROC provision of bitumen tray seal within the Warrandyte Council 2-year period. 12 months extension is going to be allowed to the 30th of June 2020. Regional procurement will be able to adjust the prices in accordance with the variation clauses contained within the contract. And the executive staff of regional procurement be given approval to sign the deed of agreement on behalf of council, and this contract will be awarded from the 1st of July 2023 to the close of business 30th of June 2025, and the terms and conditions of the contract to Countrywide Asphalt, Fulton Hogan and New South Wales Spray Seal as a panel contract. With item number 3, is the tender RFT C1380 construction ventilator causal at the Dragon Cow Maribel Road. And council has accepted the analysis of the tender valuation in accordance with the Local Government General Regulation 2021 for the contract, and accepted the tender from Consult Solutions Limited and authorises the General Manager to enter into the contract for the sum of $377,053.25 inclusive of GST. With item number 4, supply and delivery of bulk fuel through regional procurement, which is T4 2324 OROC, supply and delivery of bulk fuel. Its period 1st of July 23 to the ending of 30th of June 22. Could have a 12-month extension to the 30th of June 2026. Regional procurement will give approval to adjust the prices in accordance with the price variation clause within the contract. Executive staff been given approval of regional procurement to sign the deed of agreement on behalf of the council. The Warren Shire Council awarded the contract from 1st of July 23 to the close of business 30th of June 2025, in accordance with the terms and conditions of the contract for Castellan Proprietary Limited, trading as Inland Petroleum. And then with item 5, which is the supply and delivery of bulk water treatment chemicals, everything in accordance with the Local Government General Regulation 2024, Council formally agreed to accept the analysis of the tender for supply and delivery of bulk water supply chemicals, and for a 2-year contract, 1st of July 23 to ending 30th of June, for chlorine gas to Ioxin Operations, aluminium sulphate to Redox Limited, hydrochloric acid to BTX Group, dense soda ash to Redox Limited, and cyanuric acid, Colonial Chemicals, and it too has a 12-month extension based on satisfactory supply performance. With item 6, Council resolved that the General Manager that Council authorised the General Manager to enter into the contract for Patches Asphalt, asphalt for $376,986 ex-GST for asphalt works in Dover Street, Redford Street, Hull Street, and knowing that further extra works will be undertaken around town within budget as variations. Probably just everyone knows to say.
Thank you for that one. Thank you for that summation of the motions that were moved, seconded and accepted during the Committee of the Whole Closed Council. We just have to adopt those as a whole. So Councillor Kinsey's have to move that, Councillor Jackson again, thank you. No further discussion, I believe. To put those, all those in favour, against, carried. I think that concludes our meeting now. Thank you very much all for your attendance and forbearance in getting through all that. And look forward to our next meeting with a shorter time frame.